The galaxy's most feared military test was designed to break even the strongest aliens. But when humanity sent one man, everything changed. Captain Kai Sato stepped into the Crixian crucible with a cocky smile and asked, "When does the test start?" What was meant to crush humans became his personal warm-up routine. The observation deck of the Crixian crucible station thrummed with electric tension. Towering walls of living crystal pulsed with eerie green bioluminescence, illuminating the faces of the galaxy's most powerful species. Ambassadors, warlords, and conquerors from across the Concord had gathered to witness the latest entertainment. None of them expected what was about to unfold. High Overseer Vraxkull stood like a nightmare given form. His massive, muscular emerald body glistened with toxic secretions. 8 powerful tentacles writhed behind him, each one capable of crushing steel. His glowing yellow eyes scanned the arena below with predatory confidence. For 12,000 cycles, the Crixian crucible had been the ultimate test of worthiness, a merciless gauntlet designed to break even the strongest civilizations. Today, it would humble a new species, humanity. The heavy doors hissed open. Captain Kai Sato strode into the chamber wearing only a tight blue compression tank top, black fingerless gloves, and military shorts. His muscular frame moved with relaxed confidence. A small smile played on his lips as he looked up toward the observation deck, completely unfazed by the hundreds of alien eyes staring down at him. Vraxkull's deep, rumbling voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Human. You stand in the Crixian crucible, the forge that has shattered empires. It crushed the bone-plated Tharic hordes. It dissolved the Veil symbiotes. It broke the proud Zorathian legions until they begged for death. Your fragile species was only granted entry as a political gesture. Today, you will learn why humanity belongs at the bottom of the galactic food chain." Kai rolled his shoulders casually, then flashed a bright, confident grin that seemed wildly out of place. "Cool story, big guy," he called out, his voice carrying clearly through the arena. "When does the test start?" A stunned silence fell over the observation deck, followed by a wave of angry hisses, shocked murmurs, and even a few disbelieving laughs. Vraxkull's tentacles lashed violently, cracking the reinforced floor beneath him. "You dare mock the crucible," the overseer snarled. "Very well, little ape. Trial 1 begins. Now." The floor beneath Kai instantly vanished. He dropped into a roaring vertical wind tunnel filled with spinning gravity blades, zero-G debris fields, and crushing pressure shifts. Warning sirens blared. The observers leaned forward eagerly, expecting a quick and bloody end. What they saw instead defied logic. Kai twisted midair with perfect control, grabbing a hurtling metal beam and using its momentum to launch himself across the chamber. His hands moved like lightning, years of brutal grip training allowing him to swing from razor-sharp blade to blade as if they were children's playground equipment. When the gravity wells suddenly reversed, he tucked into a roll and sprinted straight up the vertical wall, treating it like a high-intensity treadmill session. Seconds passed. Then 20. Then 30. Vraxkull's yellow eyes narrowed dangerously. Impossible. No unaugmented species has ever survived the vortex phase this cleanly. Kai launched off the final spinning platform, performed a perfect mid-air flip, and landed on the exit platform with barely elevated breathing. He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow with the back of his glove and looked straight up at the observation deck, still smiling. "Warm-up complete," he shouted cheerfully. "That was a decent stretch. What's next, boss?" The control room erupted into chaos. Crixian technicians scrambled to recalibrate the difficulty settings, something they had never needed to do before. Vraxkull's tentacles coiled tightly around his own body as rage and disbelief warred across his face. In the back of his mind, Kai knew this was only the beginning. The physical trials were just theater. The real test would be whether this arrogant alien empire could stomach what was coming, a single human turning their greatest weapon of humiliation into nothing more than a casual morning workout. The station lights suddenly flashed blood-red. Vraxkull's voice boomed with barely contained fury. "Trial 2 is now activating. Let us see how long your smile lasts, human." Kai cracked his neck, clenched his fists, and stared directly into the nearest camera with a fearless, almost playful expression. Bring it on. The arena floor shifted with a deafening mechanical groan. The walls of the second chamber rose around Kai like the insides of a living nightmare. Bioluminescent green veins throbbed along every surface, pumping rivers of superheated acid that hissed and smoked on contact with the floor. The temperature spiked instantly to 180 degrees Celsius. The air burned the lungs. High Overseer Vraxkull's voice thundered through the chamber, dripping with malice. Welcome to the veins of Krix. 10 kilometers of corrosive death designed to strip flesh from bone. Our greatest warriors last 4 minutes. You will not last 2. Begin. Kai didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward the moment the barrier dropped. The first geyser of acid erupted directly in front of him. He vaulted over it effortlessly, feeling the searing heat singe the edges of his blue tank top. Droplets splashed across his shoulders, eating tiny holes into the fabric, but his skin held. The pain was sharp, but manageable. He had trained in worse conditions. Keep it coming, he shouted, his voice echoing off the toxic walls. Observers on the deck watched in stunned silence as the human ran deeper into hell. Acid sprays fired from every angle. The floor itself began to melt beneath his feet. Kai adapted instantly, leaping from one narrow metal beam to another, using his powerful legs to maintain momentum. His breathing stayed rhythmic, controlled, exactly like the brutal hill sprints he did back on Earth. 3 minutes in, the chamber escalated. Hundreds of microdrones burst from hidden vents, their monomolecular whips crackling with lethal energy. They swarmed him like angry metallic hornets. The first whip sliced across his left arm, drawing a thin line of blood. Kai hissed through his teeth but didn't slow down. Instead, he smiled wider. He ducked, spun, and counterattacked with terrifying precision. A drone exploded against his elbow. Another was smashed midair by a perfectly timed hook punch. His black gloves were soon slick with machine fluid and his own blood, but his movements never lost their deadly grace. More! Kai roared, grabbing one drone out of the air and hurling it into 3 others like a living missile. Vraxkull slammed all 8 tentacles against the command console. Increase swarm density to maximum. Flood the tunnels with acid. The chamber obeyed. The drone count tripled. Acid rain began pouring from the ceiling. The heat climbed past 200 degrees Celsius. Visibility dropped to almost nothing as toxic steam filled the air. For the first time, even Kai felt the pressure. His muscles screamed. His lungs fought for every breath. A whip caught him across the back, cutting deep. Blood mixed with sweat and acid. The pain was immense. For a brief second, doubt flickered in his mind, but only for a second. He thought of his squad. His planet. Every human who had ever been told they were too weak, too slow, too fragile for the galaxy. His smile returned, fierce and defiant. Kai exploded forward in a full sprint. He used the acid rivers as launch ramps, bouncing off melting walls with raw power. He turned the deadly environment into his personal obstacle course. Drones shattered by the dozens. When a massive acid waterfall blocked his path, he didn't stop, he charged straight through it, roaring in pain and triumph as the corrosive liquid tried and failed to melt him. The final gate loomed ahead, sealed with reinforced Crixian alloy. Kai didn't break. He lowered his shoulder and slammed into it with every ounce of strength left in his body. The metal buckled. The gate exploded outward in a shower of sparks and molten debris. He stumbled into the exit chamber, chest heaving, body covered in cuts, burns, and blood. His once pristine blue tank top hung in charred tatters. He ripped what remained of it off and tossed it aside, standing bare-chested under the harsh lights. Kai looked straight up at the observation deck, blood dripping from his chin, and flashed that same cocky, unbreakable grin. 4 minutes and 27 seconds, he called out, voice hoarse but strong. Not bad for a warm-up. You all right up there, big guy? You're looking a little pale. Vraxkull's yellow eyes burned with pure hatred. The control room had fallen deathly silent. Technicians stared at their screens in disbelief. The human's vitals were still climbing, not failing, but accelerating. The Overseer's tentacles trembled with rage. No more games, he growled. Trial 3 will break your mind. Activate the Mirror of Madness. The station lights turned a deep, ominous crimson. Kai wiped blood from his mouth, cracked his knuckles, and stared directly into the camera with burning intensity. "Bring on the mind games," he whispered. "I've been waiting for a real challenge." The next chamber door began to open. No acid. No blades. No roaring wind. Just a vast circular room with perfectly mirrored walls, floor, and ceiling. The moment Kai stepped inside, the door sealed behind him with a cold finality. Soft white light bathed the space, making every surface reflect infinite versions of himself. Vraxkull's voice slithered through hidden speakers, cold and triumphant. "The Mirror of Madness. It does not test your body. It devours your mind. Every fear. Every failure. Every buried weakness. Civilizations have crumbled here. Let us see how long your smile survives, human." Kai stood tall in the center, still shirtless, covered in cuts and burns from the previous trial. He rolled his shoulders and exhaled slowly. "All right," he muttered. "Let's do this." At first, nothing happened. Then the reflections began to move on their own. Thousands of Kais stared back at him, but they were wrong. One version had dead eyes, broken and defeated. Another screamed as his squad died around him on a burning battlefield. A third version was weak, slow, and pathetic, collapsing under impossible weights. The images multiplied rapidly, surrounding him in an endless sea of failure. The temperature plummeted. Gravity increased. The air grew thick with despair. Kai's heart rate spiked for the first time. A projection of his little sister appeared, crying, "You weren't strong enough to save us, Kai." Another showed Earth in flames, alien fleets descending while he stood powerless. Every regret, every doubt he had ever pushed down during brutal training sessions flooded his mind at once. The mirrored floor cracked under the psychological weight. Observers on the deck watched with satisfaction. Finally, the human was breaking. Kai dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Sweat mixed with blood on his face. The visions screamed louder, clawing at his sanity. For 10 agonizing seconds, the galaxy waited for the inevitable scream. Instead, Kai started laughing. Low at first. Then louder. Deep, genuine, defiant laughter that echoed through the chamber like thunder. "You think this is new," he shouted, forcing himself back to his feet. "I fight these demons every single morning before I even touch the barbell. Every time I look in the mirror and see the kid who was told he'd never be good enough, I beat him. Every single day." He threw a punch. The nearest reflection shattered like glass. Cracks spiderwebbed across the entire chamber. The mirror fought back viciously. Gravity surged to 6G. Illusions of his dying comrades reached out with bloody hands. The temperature dropped further. His muscles screamed under the crushing weight, but Kai began to move. He started with push-ups. Slow, perfect reps under extreme gravity. Each one shattered more reflections. He transitioned into squats, then burpees, turning the psychological torture chamber into the hardest training session of his life. "Come on," he roared at the mirrors. "Is this all you've got? I've carried heavier weights on my soul than this." The chamber intensified. Illusions of his own corpse mocked him. Voices whispered he was just a fragile ape pretending to be strong. The floor tried to swallow him. His arms trembled. Blood trickled from his nose. But his smile, bloody, exhausted, but unbroken, never left his face. Kai rose again. He shadowboxed with perfect form, each strike exploding holographic nightmares into shards. He sprinted in place under 8G, legs burning like fire. Tears of pain and fury mixed with sweat, but he kept pushing. "I am not my failures," he growled between reps. "I am the one who keeps showing up when everything says I should quit." One final, massive surge from the mirror, every fear condensed into a single colossal image of a broken, defeated Kai begging for mercy. He met its eyes. And punched straight through it. The entire chamber shattered in a brilliant explosion of light and sound. Mirrors exploded outward in a glittering storm. The artificial gravity released. The lights returned to normal. Kai stood in the center, chest heaving, body shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. Blood dripped from multiple wounds, but his eyes burned with victory. He looked directly up at the observation deck, straight into Vraxkull's disbelieving yellow eyes, and flashed that same cocky, unbreakable grin. "Mind game's over," he called out, voice raw but steady. "That was actually pretty good therapy. Cleared out some old baggage. Thanks for that." Dead silence fell across the station. Technicians stared at their monitors in horror. The mirror of madness, which had broken entire species, had failed completely against one human. Vraxkull rose slowly from his throne, all 8 tentacles quivering with uncontrollable rage. "Enough," he snarled. "No more mercy. No more separation. Trials 4, 5, and 6 will run simultaneously. The beast, the storm, and me." The station lights turned blood red once again. Kai wiped blood from his mouth, cracked his neck, and stared into the camera with pure, unfiltered fire in his eyes. "Finally," he whispered. "Now we're getting somewhere." The next doors began to open. The 4th chamber rumbled like the heartbeat of a dying star. The floor split open with a deafening metallic scream, revealing a massive pit glowing with crimson emergency lights. Thick black smoke billowed upward as something enormous stirred below. Vraxkull's voice echoed with savage satisfaction. "Behold the apex predator, the crowning terror of the Crixian crucible. 12 meters of muscle, venom, and engineered rage. It has devoured entire squads of our finest warriors. No being has ever survived it. This is where your warm-up ends, human." A thunderous roar shook the entire station. The creature erupted from the pit in a blur of fangs and fury. It was a nightmarish fusion of reptilian bulk and Crixian tentacle horror, armored scales, 6-clawed limbs, and a maw lined with serrated teeth dripping neon venom. Its eyes burned with pure bloodlust as it locked onto Kai. Kai stood his ground, bare-chested and bloodied from the previous trials. For the first time, his smile faded into something sharper, focused, predatory. The beast charged. The impact was cataclysmic. Kai barely managed to dive sideways as a massive claw cratered the floor where he had stood. The shock wave threw him across the chamber. He rolled, sprang to his feet, and sprinted straight toward the monster. "Come on, big boy," he shouted. "Let's dance." The apex predator swiped again. Kai slid under the strike, grabbed a swinging tentacle limb, and used its momentum to launch himself onto the creature's back. His powerful arms locked around its thick neck in a vicious rear choke. The beast went berserk. It thrashed violently, slamming Kai against the walls with bone-crushing force. Sparks flew as his back scraped across reinforced plating. Pain exploded through his body, but he refused to let go. His muscles burned like fire as he squeezed harder, legs wrapped tight around the monster's torso. Venom sprayed from the creature's jaws, sizzling where it touched the floor. One droplet landed on Kai's shoulder, burning deep into muscle. He gritted his teeth and held on. "You're strong," Kai growled through clenched teeth, "but I've lifted heavier on leg day." The beast reared up, trying to crush him against the ceiling. At the last second, Kai released his grip, dropped down, and delivered a devastating elbow strike to the side of the creature's head. The impact echoed like a gunshot. The monster staggered. For a moment, the station seemed to hold its breath. Then the apex predator counterattacked with blinding speed. A claw caught Kai across the chest, opening 3 deep gashes. Blood sprayed across the floor. He flew backward and crashed hard, skidding several meters before stopping. Pain. Blinding, white-hot pain. Observers cheered. Vraxkull's yellow eyes gleamed with triumph. Kai coughed blood, pushed himself up on shaking arms, and slowly rose to his feet. His breathing was ragged. Blood poured down his torso. But when he lifted his head, that unbreakable smile returned. "That all you got?" he whispered. He charged again. What followed was no longer a fight, it was a masterclass in human ferocity. Kai dodged, weaved, and struck with surgical precision. He targeted joints, eyes, and pressure points no alien designer had anticipated. Every time the beast landed a hit, Kai turned the pain into fuel. He climbed the creature like a living mountain, raining down hammer fists on its skull. When it tried to shake him off, he used its own tentacles against it, tying them into painful knots. The apex predator roared in confusion and agony. It had never faced anything that refused to die. With a final, desperate surge, the beast pinned Kai beneath one massive claw. The pressure was unbearable. Bones creaked. Vision tunneled. Death felt seconds away. Kai looked the monster dead in its glowing eyes. Not today. In one explosive movement, he powered his arms upward, broke the pin, and locked both hands around the creature's lower jaw. With a primal scream that echoed across the entire station, Kai wrenched its head sideways and drove his knee into its throat with everything he had left. A sickening crack rang out. The apex predator collapsed in a heap, unconscious and defeated. Kai staggered backward, covered in blood, both his and the beast's. His body trembled from exhaustion. Deep gashes wept across his chest and arms. But he remained standing. He looked up toward the observation deck, straight at Vraxkull, and forced a bloody, defiant grin. "4 down," he rasped, voice hoarse but clear. "Your pet needed a nap. You got anything harder, or are we still warming up?" Dead silence gripped the station. Vraxkull's tentacles lashed wildly. Rage and disbelief twisted his features into something monstrous. "No more delays," the overseer snarled. "All remaining trials merge. Now! I will finish this myself." The chamber lights turned blood-red as the final nightmare began to awaken. Kai wiped blood from his mouth, cracked his bloody knuckles, and stared into the camera with burning eyes. "Finally," he breathed. "Let's end this." The station itself turned against him. All remaining defenses activated at once. The walls of the fifth chamber groaned and shifted, corridors collapsing in real time. Crimson emergency lighting pulsed like an angry heartbeat. Toxic gas flooded the air while gravity generators spun wildly, flipping orientation every few seconds. Vraxkull's voice boomed with final, venomous fury. "No more separate trials, human. This is the Crucible's true wrath. Survive the storm if you can. You will not reach me." Kai stood bloodied and battered, chest rising and falling heavily. Deep gashes from the apex predator still bled. Every breath hurt. But his eyes burned with unbreakable resolve. "Then let's finish this," he whispered. He sprinted forward as the floor dropped away. The first wave hit immediately. Dozens of elite Crixian commandos in powered exosuits dropped from overhead vents. They were faster and stronger than anything he had faced before. Plasma rifles blazed. Kai moved on pure instinct. He ducked under a searing energy bolt, grabbed the nearest warrior's arm, and used the alien's own momentum to hurl him into 2 others. The impact crumpled their armor. He spun, drove his elbow into a throat, and kept running even as gravity suddenly reversed, slamming him against the ceiling. Pain exploded through his body, but he adapted instantly. He ran across the ceiling, then dropped as gravity flipped again, landing in a roll that carried him through a collapsing hallway. Debris rained down. A massive girder nearly crushed him. He caught it with raw strength, muscles screaming, and shoved it aside. "Come on," he roared. "Is this the best you've got?" The station answered with an energy storm. Arcs of lethal blue lightning ripped through the corridors. The air turned corrosive, burning his lungs with every breath. Kai's vision blurred from blood loss and exhaustion, but he pushed harder. His legs felt like lead, yet they kept pumping. Each stride was fueled by pure defiance. Wave after wave of Crixian warriors poured in. He fought through them like a mun possessed, blocking, striking, throwing. A plasma blast grazed his ribs. Another scorched his thigh. Blood flowed freely now, leaving red streaks on the metallic floors. Still, he smiled. Not the cocky grin from the beginning. This was something rawer, a bloody, exhausted, triumphant smile that said he was still here. Still fighting. Still winning. A section of the corridor ahead began to crush inward like a closing fist. Kai sprinted straight toward it. At the last possible second, he dove through the narrowing gap, scraping skin off his back as the walls slammed shut behind him. The explosion of debris threw him forward into the next nightmare. Gravity vanished completely. He floated into a zero-G kill zone filled with spinning razor drones and floating mines. His body screamed for rest. Muscles trembled. Blood drifted in crimson globes around him. But Kai refused to slow down. He propelled himself off walls, twisting and striking with deadly efficiency. Drone after drone exploded under his fists and elbows. When a mine detonated nearby, the shockwave sent him spinning violently. He corrected midair, grabbed a piece of shrapnel, and used it as a makeshift weapon to tear through the remaining defenses. Vraxkal watched from the command throne, tentacles coiled so tightly they drew black blood from his own hide. "How?" the overseer whispered. His body should have failed hours ago. Kai's internal monologue was simple and relentless. One more step. One more breath. They want to break me? I'll break their entire damn station first. The final stretch appeared, a long, narrowing tunnel lined with plasma turrets and collapsing segments. The toxic gas was thickest here. Kai's lungs felt like they were melting. His heart hammered dangerously fast. Vision tunneled. He roared and charged. Turret fire filled the corridor with death. Kai weaved through it like a ghost, pushing his exhausted body beyond every limit he had ever known. A blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him, but he kept going. Another hit his leg. He stumbled, nearly fell. Then forced himself upright and sprinted harder. The end of the tunnel loomed, the sealed doors leading to the heart of the crucible. Kai lowered his shoulder and slammed into the reinforced barrier with everything he had left. Metal shrieked. The doors buckled inward. With a final, primal scream, he burst through into the massive zero-gravity arena. He floated into the center, body broken, blood drifting around him in a crimson halo. Every limb shook. Pain consumed him. But he was still conscious. Still standing. Still smiling. Kai looked up at the towering figure descending from the shadows, High Overseer Vraxkal himself, fully armored for war, all 8 tentacles primed for killing. The human raised his bloody fists. Finally, Kai rasped, voice raw and defiant. "No more warm-up. Let's end this, big guy." The final battle was about to begin. The heart of the crucible was a colossal zero-gravity sphere, its walls lined with pulsing energy conduits that fed directly into the station's core. Stars glittered coldly through reinforced viewports as High Overseer Vraxkal descended like a god of war. His emerald body was now encased in ancient Crixian battle armor, 8 massive tentacles bristling with razor spines and plasma emitters. His yellow eyes blazed with 12,000 cycles of unbroken supremacy. "This ends here, human," Vraxkal roared, voice shaking the arena. "No more games. No more mercy. I will crush you myself and broadcast your broken body across the galaxy as a warning." Kai floated in the center, barely recognizable. Blood drifted in slow crimson spheres around him. Deep gashes covered his chest and arms. His left shoulder hung at an unnatural angle. Every breath was a labored rasp. Yet when he lifted his head, his eyes still burned with that same unbreakable fire. He raised his bloody fists. "No more warm-up," Kai whispered. "Let's go." Vraxkal attacked. 8 tentacles lashed forward like living whips of death. Kai twisted midair, dodging the first 3 by centimeters. The 4th caught him across the ribs, cracking bone and sending him spinning violently across the arena. Pain exploded through his body, but he used the momentum to propel himself off a wall and straight back into the fight. He slammed into the Overseer's chest like a missile. His good arm hammered down in a brutal series of elbows that dented the ancient armor. Vraxkal roared and grabbed Kai with 2 tentacles, squeezing with crushing force. Bones creaked. Vision tunneled. Kai felt his ribs flex dangerously close to snapping. Instead of panicking, he headbutted the Overseer's face with savage force. Cartilage cracked. Black blood sprayed. Vraxkal loosened his grip just enough for Kai to break free, spinning away and delivering a devastating kick to the side of the alien's head. The station trembled. They collided again and again in a brutal zero-G ballet of violence. Tentacles whipped. Fists flew. Plasma blasts scorched the air. Kai was slower now, his body screaming for surrender, but every time Vraxkal landed a blow that should have ended him, the human answered with something fiercer. A tentacle wrapped around Kai's waist and slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack the viewport. Blood painted the glass. Kai coughed violently, but grabbed the tentacle with both hands and twisted viciously, using leverage and raw willpower to flip the massive overseer over his body. You are nothing. Vraxkal bellowed, enraged beyond reason. I'm everything you're afraid of, Kai snarled back. The final exchange was apocalyptic. Vraxkal unleashed everything, every weapon, every technique, centuries of combat mastery. Kai met him with pure human defiance. He was bleeding from a dozen new wounds. His left arm hung useless. One eye was swollen shut. Yet he kept moving, kept fighting, kept smiling through the blood. With a primal scream that echoed across the entire station, Kai grabbed two tentacles, planted his feet against Vraxkal's chest, and pulled with every last ounce of strength left in his broken body. Armor plates buckled. Joints screamed. The overseer roared in agony as Kai forced him into a devastating full-body lock. They tumbled through the zero-G arena, locked in a death struggle. Vraxkal's yellow eyes widened in disbelief as the human refused to die. Refused to yield. Refused to break. Yield, Kai growled through gritted teeth, blood dripping from his mouth. Or I break you. For one eternal second, the most feared warrior in the galaxy stared into the eyes of a single human. And saw something terrifying. Unbreakable will. I yield, Vraxkal finally whispered, voice cracking with shame and awe. The station's alarms fell silent. The red lights faded to calm blue. Kai released the overseer. Both combatants drifted apart, battered and exhausted. Vraxkal lowered all 8 tentacles in submission. The human floated forward and extended his bloody, trembling hand. Vraxkal stared at it for a long moment. Then grasped it with one massive tentacle. The observation deck, filled with the galaxy's greatest powers, erupted in thunderous, stunned applause. Kai looked directly into the galactic broadcast camera, bloodied, broken, but victorious. His voice rang out strong and clear across every world, to every human watching. The test is over. We didn't just pass it. He grinned, teeth stained red. We made their greatest weapon our warm-up routine. He turned back to Vraxkal, still holding the tentacle in a warrior's grip. So, when does the next test start? The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived. And they were only getting started. Subscribe.